In July and August, Botswana is locked in the grip of its dry winter months. Much of its landscape turns into a dusty wasteland. Only the Okavango Delta is greener than ever. The summer rains in Angola took a whole month to work their way down the 1,000-kilometer course of the Okavango River before it enters the Delta's panhandle. For 4 months, the water has traveled down to the furthest reaches of the Delta as a huge, slow-moving wave. Now in July, water levels have increased by 2 meters, flooding channels, swamps, and land. The flood has reached its fullest extent, and the Delta swells to 16,000 square kilometers, about twice its permanent size. It's like a gigantic watering hole in the dust of the surrounding Kalahari Desert. The Panhandle is the Delta's entrance, a strip of land 95 kilometers long and 15 kilometers wide. Ancient fault lines in the Earth's crust channel the Okavango River before it spills onto the Delta plains. This is the realm of swamp specialists like hippos, crocodiles, and predatory fish. Now in July and August, the backwater lagoons and channels of the Panhandle clear up enough to reveal an alien underwater world. Papyrus swamps cover large areas, forming loose and spongy floating mats. Little light penetrates through the jungle of stems and roots. Crocodiles hide in deep papyrus caves. Here in the Panhandle, the ready supply of prey allows them to reach enormous sizes of up to 5 meters long. But right now, during Botswana's winter months, the cooler water temperatures make these cold-blooded reptiles sluggish and less likely to attack. The mass of vegetation in the water means there are large amounts of decaying plant matter. It creates a buildup of acidic waters, low in oxygen. Yet many fish have found ways to cope with the difficult conditions. Top minnows stay near the top, where oxygen supplies are highest. Here they catch small insects at the water's surface. Even though this exposes them to predators, the payoffs of a rich food supply and plenty of oxygen render the risks worthwhile. Tigerfish prowl the lagoons and channels. During the height of the flood season, they feed on robber and cichlid fish, too large to escape to the safety of backwater swamps. They also take catfish like squeakers. But they're well protected by sharply barbed spines on their fins. Tigerfish and even small crocodiles have been found dead with the 3-pronged barbs of a squeaker locked firmly in their gullets. Everywhere, water lilies provide welcome shelter for small fish. The lily stems grow long and thin until the flower bud has reached the surface. Air canals in their long stalks keep them afloat. But after just 4 to 6 days, the stems retract, pulling the flowers back into the water, where the fruits ripen and eventually disintegrate. But perhaps the most important residents of these waters are hippos. They are the architects of the delta and help to keep this enormous wetland in shape. Purely by pushing their bulk through the dense undergrowth, they create and maintain hippo highways that allow water and life to flow from one area to the next. This is what maintains the dynamics of the delta's seasons and preserves one of the largest wetlands in the world. Eleven and a half thousand kilometers away in Ecuador, July is the height of the rainy season. Cuyabeno is an area of dense tropical rainforest, flooded swamps and murky rivers that forms part of the Great Amazon Basin. The northeast coast of South America is home to some of the wettest places on Earth, and the Cuyabeno Reserve receives a whopping 4,000 millimeters of rain every year. Right now, in July, rain falls almost every day. Humidity is at a stifling 85 to 95%, and temperatures hover around 25 degrees Celsius. But despite the extreme conditions, the area has an incredibly rich diversity of life, with at least 12,000 plant species, hundreds of different birds, reptiles, and amphibians. Many trees reach 16 meters in height. But the dense leafy green of the forest is misleading. The soils are very nutrient poor and shallow. Plants rely on recycling decaying plant and animal matter quickly. Like the plants, animals have to find ways of coping with the hot and wet conditions. It is their specialized diet that defines many of the animals living here. Howler monkeys are among the biggest primates found in South America and have the loudest call of any land animal. They've specialized on the most abundant food source here, leaves. And leaves contain a high proportion of difficult to digest cellulose, little energy, and toxic compounds. So howler monkeys have a low metabolism and have to conserve the little energy they get from their food. So they rest much of the day. That's why they have such loud calls. Instead of wasting energy by patrolling their territory boundaries, they declare their positions by calling to each other. Intruders and competitors are warned off, and the monkeys can dedicate themselves to digesting their leaves. Another bizarre leaf specialist is the prehistoric-looking hoatzin. It too has developed ways of coping with its tough diet. Bacterial fermentation in their gut helps to break down the leaves they consume. Their crop is so large as to displace their flight muscles, much to the detriment of their flight capacity. Leafcutter ants also exploit Cuyabeno's rich green foliage. They're gardeners and cultivate a specialized fungus on the green leaves they transport to their nests. It is the fungus that feeds them, but in order to grow enough of it, these tiny insects have become the dominant herbivores of the South American tropics. Living in large societies of up to 8 million individuals per nest, leafcutter ants use a strict division of labor to ensure their work is carried out swiftly and effectively. Some of the smaller workers hitch rides on the leaves carried by their sisters. They're tasked with defending the tireless workers against marauding flies. Each one of these cuttings can weigh up to 10 times more than the ant itself. Leafcutter ants have been cultivating the same fungus lineage for more than 20 million years. In the extremely humid conditions of the tropical wet season, it is virtually impossible to keep anything disease-free. So leafcutter ants even use antibiotic secretions as a fungicide in their gardens to keep persistent and ravaging molds in check. The relationship between the leafcutter ants and their fungus is of mutual benefit. They manage to grow vast quantities of food, while the fungus survives well protected and disease-free. Like Ecuador, Indonesia also straddles the equator, on the other side of the planet. This archipelago of over 17,000 islands is surrounded by year-round warm waters and has a tropical climate. Rainfall defines the seasons. Unlike the northwest coast of South America, July is the middle of the dry season, when the islands are parched by arid winds from the Australian desert to the south. Rinca Island is one of the driest regions in Indonesia. Right now, temperatures soar to around 40 degrees. Open savanna marks the island's landscape. Timor deer, water buffalo, and wild boar are among its residents. But they're exposed to a mighty predator, the Komodo dragon. This is the largest lizard in the world, growing up to 3 meters in length and weighing in at a formidable 70 kilos. Apart from Rinca, they're found only on a handful of neighboring islands. Komodo dragons often eat carrion, but they also take live prey. And they're well equipped to hunt. 60 serrated teeth combined with a potent venom can make short work of animals as large as a water buffalo. Bad vision and hearing means the Komodo dragon uses its forked tongue to detect, taste, and smell prey. Its sense of smell is so acute that it can hone in on carrion from a distance of up to 10 kilometers. This dragon has sensed a buffalo on its way to a watering hole. Now, during the dry season, the last dwindling water pools make excellent hunting spots. At the waterhole, there's even easier prey, a small Timor deer. Preoccupied with quenching its thirst in the heat of the July sun, it's failed to notice the approach of the massive lizard. Two other killers are hard on the heels of the first. They pay little attention to the larger and more dangerous buffalo. All the deer's escape routes are now cut off. It makes desperate attempts to defend itself, but too late. A quick bite has already been delivered. The Komodo's venom is very potent. It's now only a matter of time before the deer succumbs to its injury. At the beginning of July, an extraordinary gathering takes place off the KwaZulu-Natal coast in South Africa. About 5 kilometers from the coast lies a reef known as the Aliwal Shoal, an ancient fossilized sand dune that was flooded when sea levels rose around 80,000 years ago. Today it is a fertile reef system, home to an abundance of marine life. At this time of year, it harbors the world's biggest gathering of ragged-toothed sharks. Having spent June in pursuit of vast shoals of sardines during their annual migration, up to 80 ragged-toothed sharks arrive at the Aliwal Shoal. They're in prime condition as a result of the sardine feast they've been enjoying. They're in the best possible shape for their mating season. Ragged-toothed sharks follow a seasonal migration, and between July and October, they spend their time here in the warm waters of the Agulhas Current. Even now, in the middle of the South African winter, water temperatures remain at a comfortable 20 degrees. Now in July, they're ready to mate. Mating ragged-tooth style is a rough affair, and the females show telltale signs that the mating season has started. Scars on their bodies and bite wounds to their heads and fins. The females appear to gather inside these underwater caverns of the Aliwal Shoal to get some respite from the males prowling the reef in search of mating opportunities. Females will mate with more than just one male and are ready to breed every other year. Once fertilization has taken place, an almost unbelievable reproductive cycle is set in motion. Ragged-toothed sharks don't just have one uterus, they have two. And once the female's eggs have been fertilized, as many as 10 embryos settle in each uterus. But about halfway through the 9-month gestation period, things change. The embryos develop precocious teeth, grotesque, oversized heads and eyes, and they can swim. Now the largest and strongest embryo in each uterus turns on its siblings, vigorously attacking and consuming them until only it survives. It is one of the few known cases of cannibalism within the mother's uterus. This macabre strategy has a number of advantages. The two remaining young will be about 1 meter long at birth, big enough to deter most would-be predators. What's more, they're already experienced killers, able to fend for themselves from the word go. On Rinca Island in Indonesia, the Timor deer has lost its fight for life. Komodo dragons don't have to battle with their victims. Instead, they quickly deliver a deep bite loaded with venom. The proteins in the toxins stop blood clotting, relax blood vessel walls, and drop blood pressure like a stone. The result is loss of consciousness and death. All the killers had to do is deliver a bite and retreat, while the victim succumbed to its injury. Now they can approach and consume the little deer at their leisure. Their eating habits are vicious and messy. They tear large chunks of meat and swallow them whole. Able to consume up to 80% of their own body weight in a single sitting, combined with a slow metabolism, means they can live on as little as 12 meals a year. It is now August in the Okavango Delta. Like Winca Island, Botswana is also in the grip of its dry season, and the last rains here in the Kakanaka area fell in April. But the Okavango River's floodwaters still provide plenty of water for plants and animals. At 27 degrees, August is one of the cooler months of the year. But temperatures are set to rise over the next few weeks, and even the Okavango's rich water supply then begins to dry up. It is now that the animals in the delta have to make the most of the season of plenty and prepare for the approaching drought. Soon after sunrise, a troop of baboons is already busy searching for food. They're looking for seeds, insects, and other treats among the grasses. Baboons are gregarious animals living in large groups with strong social bonds. Grooming is a welcome opportunity to take a break from the tiring search and serves to cement bonds with other group members. The youngsters take this chance to continue their exuberant games. It is a peaceful scene in the Kakanaka area until a group of banded mongooses arrives. Although much smaller than baboons, they show no fear and approach the large monkeys confidently, even playfully. Mongooses often seek the company of baboons for extra security, more eyes on the lookout for potential predators, and some big male baboons on your side makes for more relaxed foraging. Since their diet largely overlaps with that of the baboons, they're often out in the same areas looking for food. For the young baboons, the mongooses are clearly a source of entertainment and wonder alike. But as the morning drags on, the sun gets hotter and the mongooses leave to seek shade. For the baboons, it's going to be a long day of intense foraging to stock up for the drier months ahead. The dry season is also in full swing on Indonesia's Lombok Island. Its scenery and microclimate is dominated by the imposing Mount Rinjani. At 3,726 meters, one of the highest volcanic peaks in Indonesia. Forested slopes rise straight from the sea to create their own weather pattern for the entire island. It has several different ecosystems, from lowland tropical forest to alpine scrub. The summit itself is a barren place, marked by the destruction of recent eruptions. Yet life clings on even here, despite the difficult terrain and lack of water. And it isn't just hardy alpine flora that ekes out a living here. At a surprising 3,000 meters altitude, a troop of long-tailed macaques searches for food. These gregarious monkeys are usually found in forests where they live on fruit. Perhaps the ongoing dry season has forced this troop up the slopes in search of other foods. Mount Rinjani is a popular destination for hikers, and they offer a plethora of food raiding opportunities. As opportunistic foragers, long-tailed macaques have learnt to exploit their human neighbours. In some areas, over 20% of their diet is made up of human-sourced foods. Competition for limited resources can lead to aggression and bullying among troop members. Since they live in a hierarchy-driven society, members of the lower ranks often fare worst in times of food shortages. This can have particularly severe consequences for mothers with young babies. Given their lack of control over already sparse dry season resources, their chances of bringing up a surviving infant are greatly reduced. For this mother, it has resulted in the death of her baby. Unwilling to accept her fate, she cradles the dead infant in her arms. Until the end of the dry season in September signals more plentiful food supplies for the entire troop, the likelihood of further deaths among the nursing infants of this troop is high. In the Kakanaka area of the Okavango Delta, the floodwaters of the Okavango River are still providing enough water for all animals. Soon things will change. When the floodwaters recede around September, the land will dry up. Water will become more scarce. Buffalo will then leave in search of better grazing, leaving the resident lion pride short of food. So they're busy making the most of the big buffalo herds while they're still in their territory. The pride's hunters are in pursuit of a herd, stalking the buffalo carefully before launching an attack. Working closely together, they concentrate on sneaking as close to their prey as possible. Unable to sustain long assaults, the lions have to get within 30 meters. Their concentration is entirely devoted to the hunt. So they don't notice another lion pride in pursuit of the same herd. These lions are trespassing on the Kakanaka pride's territory. Then the residents notice their rivals. Under no circumstances will the pride tolerate the intruders on their patch. They abandon the hunt and herd them towards the buffaloes. It's a tight spot for the trespassers. Buffaloes are not to be trifled with, but if caught by the resident lions, they're in for a beating. Managing to break through the Kakanaka lions' ring of defense, they make good their escape. But in the confusion, one of the unwanted visitors has mistaken the residents for her own pride and follows them. When she realizes her mistake, she quickly turns back. But having noticed the imposter, one of the Kakanaka females gives chase, closely followed by the alpha male. They want to make sure that their rivals are well and truly gone from their territory. With the annual drought around the corner, they can't afford to share the prey in their area with anyone. And to advertise who's boss around here, the alpha male loudly lays claim to his pride and his territory. Along the east coast of South Africa, a colourful community benefits from the warmth of the Agulhas Current as it works its way south from Mozambique. The extensive coral reefs just off Sodwana Bay. It is now winter in KwaZulu-Natal, and August is one of the coldest months, when temperatures drop to around 20 degrees. Its southerly location and seasonal weather makes Sodwana Bay an unlikely home for tropical coral reefs. Yet water temperatures remain high all year round. Corals are highly sensitive to temperature fluctuations and are confined to areas where the water never gets colder than 16 degrees. The reefs at Sodwana Bay can only survive here due to the warm ocean current from the north that keeps their corals alive and thriving. Corals are ancient invertebrate animals related to jellyfish. They tend to live in nutrient-poor waters and survive with the help of tiny algae that live in their tissues. These microscopic plants supply about 90% of the coral polyp's nutrient requirements by turning sunlight into sugars. But the algae come at a price. It is they that cannot live in waters that are too warm or too cold. Here at Sodwana Bay, the corals and their algae thrive in the surprisingly warm waters of the Agulhas Current, despite the cooler winter weather. Coral reefs are like ocean oases. About a quarter of all marine life lives here. Colourful fish dart in and out of nooks and crannies while predators prowl the reef for prey. Occasionally, the traditional roles of predator and prey become obsolete. These tiny shrimp might make a welcome snack for this potato bass, but here they fearlessly crawl all over the predator. This is a reef cleaning station. The shrimp are known as cleaner shrimp. All sorts of fish drop in here and are willing to allow the tiny crustaceans to give them a makeover by removing irritating parasites. Sea anemones are regulars at the reef. They're primitive animals and use their tentacles to capture prey. Inside each tentacle, a myriad of tiny stinging cells discharge on contact with potential quarry. The poison-laden stings include neurotoxins to paralyze prey. It is thought to be highly toxic to fish and crustaceans. But there is an exception. The clownfish. These colourful little fish are immune to the sea anemone's poison, possibly through the protection of a special mucus layer. In fact, clownfish have made sea anemones their home, taking advantage of the protection offered by the anemone's stinging tentacles. In return, the clownfish keep their host scrupulously clean, and their fecal matter provides nutrients for the sea anemone. Clownfish live in small groups within a single anemone, usually a breeding pair and a few juvenile males. All clownfish are born male, so when the female dies, the dominant male changes sex and becomes a female. This breeding pair has laid a neat field of eggs next to their host anemone and carefully fusses over them. They'll aggressively defend their offspring in the face of any predator. In about 6 or 10 days, the eggs will be ready to hatch to become the newest additions to the multicolored world of Sodwana's coral reef. In the Kakanika area of the Okavango Delta, the resident lion pride has had to abandon their hunt. Their confrontation with a neighboring rival pride has alerted the buffaloes. Their cover is blown. But lions need around 5 to 7 kilos of meat a day, so not eating is a bad option, especially in the run-up to the Delta's ruthless dry season. Although lions tend to hunt live prey, they're not averse to scavenging, especially when times are tough. The alpha male has caught the scent of a dead animal. Following his nose, he finds an impala corpse hidden in the long grass. But this animal hasn't died of natural causes. It is the precious kill of a leopard. Sensing the lion's approach, the killer quickly sought refuge in a tree. For him, it isn't worth taking on a lion. The lion would undoubtedly have the upper hand. What's more, an injury could impair the leopard's ability to hunt, and a disabled leopard rarely survives for long. So all he can do is watch as the Kakanika lion picks up his kill and tucks in. Male lions rarely share their kill with other pride members, so this male keeps quiet about his lucky find. He is able to gorge himself and eat up to 30 kilos in a single sitting. But eventually he's eaten his fill and leaves the meager leftovers in the grass. He's in best shape to face the oncoming drought. The leopard has watched the lion keenly throughout his meal. Now he feels safe enough to leave the tree. Carefully, he approaches the remains of his kill. He grabs what's left and bolts back up the tree. At least the scraps left on the carcass can provide him with some energy to go on the hunt again soon. As August draws to a close, the seasons on planet Earth continue to change, triggering new phases in the lives of many creatures. Weather and climate change constantly as the year progresses. Life responds to these subtle signals with some of the most incredible spectacles on Earth.